Welcome back to Atlanta Diaries. I'm your host Enma Popley. Thank you for joining me. In Atlanta Diaries, we celebrate unique and inspiring stories of breakthrough women to help future generations create their own. If you want to know more about Atlanta or listen to more episodes, you can visit my website www.enmapopley.com. You can also share feedback or suggestions there. It has been quite a run, and I've thoroughly enjoyed having such wonderful conversations with some amazing, inspiring women. And more than that, sharing these conversations with all of you. I want to take some time off to be with the three men in my family, and I'm therefore taking a short break. But I will be back with another slate of amazing women starting August 4th. So do save that date. Meanwhile, I would not want you to lose your habit of tuning in every week to Atlanta Diaries. I've therefore selected a few hidden gems from my earlier conversations, and I'm resharing them with you so that you stay inspired. See you on August 4th, and happy listening. And thank you very much for your support in helping build this amazing Atlanta Diaries community. My guest today is Nichol Ng. Nichol is CEO and Managing Director of Y.E.S, the parent of a group of companies that has been in the food business since the 1930s. Her passion for food and a desire to deliver service with a heart drove Nichol to take over the family business, and she rebranded the company in May 2007. In 2012, Nichol co-founded the Food Bank Singapore, a charity which redistributes excess foods to more than 370 not-for-profits that reach out to more than 300,000 underprivileged. For these efforts, among other laurels, Nichol was listed in Forbes Asia's 2017 Heroes of Philanthropy and Harper's Bazaar's The Power List 2018. Nichol has leadership roles in various local and global organizations. She is the president of One Singapore, an executive committee member of YPO Singapore chapter, and is a board member of Global Compact Network Singapore. Nichol is happily married to a partner of 26 years and believes that the best legacy to leave her 4 children, ages 3 to 10, is not money but her values. Her life is governed by the mantra her grandmother shared with her. It's more of a blessing to be able to give than to take. Without further ado, let's listen to Nichol's conversation. Hi, Nichol. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Enma. Nice to meet you again.
Same here. And I just realized that we are actually having this chat on Women's Day. So more power to all that you do. And I'd love to talk more about it as we go forward.
Yes, sure. Shoot away.
Awesome. Let's start with the very beginning, Nichol. How did your early years shape your journey thus far?
You know, the amazing thing is that I'm one of those people that remembers the feelings, the emotions, and the memories from a very young age. So even like now, if you ask me what's my earliest memory of myself, it's probably a year and a half, 2 years old, where my parents brought me to Hong Kong on a first class flight. But I mean, just stemming on that, it's been an interesting journey of how I grew up, right? My father was a businessman that was hardly in the house. My mom was a homemaker since she was 19 after she married my dad. And I mean, she's been a housewife all her life. To me, what I always called him, he's like the startup of the 80s and the 90s. Yeah, it's just that he ran like 40 different startups, right, in 25 countries. And he basically built an empire of about 250 million USD in the early 90s for a small Singapore SME. And so these 40 companies, they vary from like movie making in Hong Kong to seafood trawling in Cape Town. My parents also ran Miss Singapore pageant at some point. And then my dad was a Swatch watch distributor, a perfume distributor. My dad was kind of not non-existent, but still existent. He was like a father figure. So what I don't question is his work ethic. So I think my personality is a lot like him. He's been a fighter as well. I think because he was a school dropout at 15, and then he left his food distribution family business to set up another entity to do all these trading. So he was never really in the food distribution business that was started by my grandfather in 1934. that was left to my uncles to run, right? So he was second youngest of these 9 children. But from a very young age, I knew that my family came with some legacy and some story. And maybe having that on my shoulder is that I am here to maybe flip the next page of what this legacy stands for. So the other thing that really is entrenched in me till today, which I think reflects in the rest of my life, is that sense of responsibility, or that I'm called to this earth for a purpose. My brother, he's 18 months younger than I am. And that time Singapore was the stop at 2 campaign. So my parents could only have 2 children. If not, the third one would get to a bad school. But basically, although he's only a year and a half younger than I am, my grandparents have always said, my maternal grandparents, right? You need to look after him. So I've always been the caregiver role from very, very young age. And that's what I always remembered. Yeah, and then the other episode that was pre 6 years old, I guess, would be the onset of my eating disorder. So because I'm a tall lady, right? Like I'm 1.7, I'm big built, my bones are heavy, I'm just above average Asian kind of size for a female, because I'm not a fussy eater, and my brother was a fussy eater, so he used to pass all the food to me. But basically, I grew up faster and I was bigger than other girls. And I told my mom I want to learn ballet. She brought me to a very famous ballet school in Singapore. And the teacher told my mom and this 5-year-old girl, which is me, that Mrs. Ng, your daughter is too fat to be a ballerina. And that was the first time when I felt that your size may be an hindrance to what you want to pursue. Of course, being my mom, she said, okay, to hell with you. It's all right. My daughter doesn't have to learn ballet. Not learning ballet is not going to be the end of her life. So I realized that before I entered primary school. So I was very mindful about all these things. And now I'm talking to you as if like it's yesterday. So it's very much entrenched. So I decided to be a student leader since I was 7 years old. I was a head prefect of the primary school. I was the head prefect of the secondary school. I was a softball school team. I was basically doing everything out of the classroom because I know that I'm not strong academically. I mean, not compared to my peers that are all top students. I knew from young that I have to find out what is my USP, honestly. So my juggling has been like that you see now. I went on to university. I went on to be the vice president of the Students' Union, and so I've always led a very active student life outside. And the other thing which is interesting is my school principal. She told my mom, she said, Mrs. Ng, I think your daughter will not excel in school. Point blank. But Nicole has something very unique about her. She will do very well in life, but we don't know yet what it is, but it might be her leadership that will differentiate her from the rest of her peers. So I have my school principal to thank. At 8 years old, right? She gave me this jab of like, this sense of well-being that, okay, that I will have a purpose in life, even though I may not get all A's, right? Or all B's or AB's or whatever. The other biggest thing was that my dad lost the business in 1997. We went bankrupt during the Asian currency crisis. So 97, 98, when I entered university, we lost 39 of the 40 companies. And I was there when the banks came to seize the house and tore away my mom's Mercedes, right? And basically it's like what you see on TV. It's a guard with a banker, and you have 30 minutes, they wipe pieces of paper like right of seizure, stuck on the door with the masking tape. My brother was protected because he was in Australia. He was in boarding school. And that changes your life forever. I had a comfortable upbringing. I was never pampered. From 97 onwards, I've been working to put myself through school, earning my own allowance, earning part-time $4 an hour kind of jobs. But my growing up years were like this.
That's a very inspiring, scary, and I mean, so many things come to my mind, Nicole, when I listen to your journey. And I want to explore more about Your father's business started with 40 and ended with one. So, what kind of a role did you play in helping in the turnaround of the family?
Yeah, so although I consider myself a third generation of this business legacy, I was never called back to business because it's laden with debts, right? I mean, I think my dad filed bankruptcy on a 500 million US dollar debt. So it's not like a $5 million like chump change kind of thing. And I think he tried very hard to keep the ship afloat for a very long time. And he was looking after the extended family, right? Like putting my cousins through school, buying bungalows and things like that. So that got him into personal bankruptcy as well. And he took on all the debt, not my uncles, but my father. So I was called to come back to the business 2 years after I graduated. I went out to work at MediaCorp as a marketing executive, which is at the national radio stations. I need to put computers in the company because when I joined the business, it was traditional handwritten invoices with that blue carbonated copy in between. Only some of us at a certain age will remember those kind of booklets. So I decided to come back to the family business only for one reason. I think my father needed a cheerleader to be by his side. My dad loves me a lot, and of course, he has a lot of expectations on the daughter as well. So he was like the Batman and he needed the Robin, right? So I wanted to be his Robin. And then I started on the journey of identifying how do I put computers in, the average age of the employees was like late 40s to 50s, right? And they didn't even know what a mouse was. So I remember the first day when I came back to the business, my two uncles were still in the business. So they actually told me, I give you 1 year to survive. That's what they told me.
They were challenging you.
Yeah, executive chefs, males, most managing directors and CEOs of trading companies or whatever, they're all males in their 50s and 60s. And they can't envision how a 23-year-old with long red hair, wearing 5-inch heels, can survive in a male-dominated industry, right? But I guess 21 years on, I kind of proved them wrong that I'm still here and I've been fighting fires and I've been turning things, right? So I stuck to the cause and I started to realize that, hey, what grandfather started is not a distribution business, it's not a trading business, it's not a wholesale business. I am basically like the Amazon and the e-commerce sites of before because my restaurant customers and hotels, they order break bulk, which means that my Marina Bay Sands order 2 bottles of Tabasco, 1 packet of kitchen roll, a carton of yogurt. I'll send it to them. And that's when I realized that, hey, we're a food service provider. We provide concierge service. We source for items globally and locally. And then we put all the items together and then we drop ship to all my clients. So I told my dad, I said, we are not a wholesaler in a traditional sense. I picked up on that and I said, hey, maybe this is worthwhile to see how we can extend the business legacy and to continue on what my grandfather started out in 1934. So I stood with my dad. And I think the biggest change came was in 2007 when I set up the current entity, Food Services. I actually bought over the family business because I'm also quite forward looking and I'm not living in la la land, right? When things are a mess, when things are distressed, when you got tons of debt, no cousins, no friends, nobody wants to help you out. You're on your own. And I was there with my dad, right? Cleaning up the mess and doing all the housekeeping. So I said, if I'm going to make good this very distressed business, I said, it jolly well better be mine, not someone else's, right? Because when let's say one day we get to list the company, right? I'm not going to have my cousins come back. And this is the realities of family business. And you have to face this reality. So in 2007, I set up Food Services together with my brother. And we acquired the family business, everything at arm's length. So nothing was handed down. We paid for the goods. We paid for the customer base. We paid for the vehicles. I paid my uncles, although they were bankrupt and non-shareholders, $4 million retirement fund over 10 years. So we paid them out to make them feel comfortable that say, hey, you leave things to me, you leave the company, you will still get your monthly allowance or whatsoever. I cleaned up the house. And that was the best decision ever. Yeah, the other thing, I think branding is everything. So from a very Chinese name, it used to be Ng Chai Mong or Wang Zai Mao trading company, right? And it's like, It's very Chinese, right? Like, I'm not saying that I speak perfect fluent Mandarin and I love my Chinese roots, but I felt that it doesn't differentiate us from any other trading companies. So what I did was I changed the trucks to black and green. I changed the branding to black and green, and for a Chinese company, black is taboo, right? It's like, and a food company, nobody uses black back in the knots, right? I used the company name Food Services with an X in the middle, and I created that windmill icon together with my designer. So I decided to revamp the entire branding. We were so successful in reinventing ourselves like a startup that there was rumor in the market that Americans bought Ng Chai Mong. And the honest truth was that it was me and my brother behind this, right? What I always say is that I decided to use a startup model to reinvent a heritage business. And I think it's important to have that startup mindset. So you keep on reinventing your business model, right? I mean, you cannot sit around thinking, oh, if it's not broken, then I'm not going to fix it. So we did that. And there was no turning back, right? So when I bought the business, it was $12 million revenue. And then pre-COVID in 2019, $65 million revenue. So we actually grew the customers from 300 to 5,000, customer product base from 1,000 to 5,000 products, have a lot more brand partnerships, and build our own building. Yeah. And, of course, then COVID hit, right? Like, and being in the food service business, everything was disrupted. So maybe, at this juncture, before any of your listeners thinks that, oh yeah, she's got it easy because it's a family business. She had the legacy to build on. It's none of this nonsense. We are really struggling right now. And the last 12 to 24 months has been a challenge of our resilience. And we are questioning whether this industry, the trading business as we know it, is still going to be a viable business for us in the future because, e-commerce is disrupting everything. And, versus my dad's trading days where you need to know people to trade and you can get extra margins for that. Now everything is so open book. Yeah, you literally can compare prices, right? For everything. So it has put our model, our industry, our everything to question. But I must say it's been a very interesting 12 months for me. And I choose to see our reduced sales as an opportunity to recalibrate and sometimes to take a breather, right? So now my personal challenge or my personal agenda really is to, can I survive the next 10 years so that we hit 2034 and our family's legacy would then hit 100 years? So that is my driving force. But I told myself, my grandfather came to Singapore with nothing. Literally nothing. We've survived the 97 crisis, the 85 crisis, the dot-com boom, and now SARS, and then with COVID, right? I say we will make it out of this, and there's no shame in this, and this doesn't work anymore. How can we fix it? How can we do it?
Yeah, time to pivot, time to look at more innovations. That's very interesting again, Nichol, and thank you again for sharing and exactly your journey and where you are in it right now. I understood that your brother is sort of almost like a partner in this journey. So is he like your go-to person? Who is it that you sort of converse with? Did you also build a professional team given the current situation? Would you like to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think for all family businesses, there are usually two challenges that we face, right? So how do you deal with your family relationships, whether it's your mom, your dad, whoever that's in the business together with you, right? So I was very fortunate in the sense that my brother came in as an equal. And I told him, being vulnerable, I said, Jeje really needs your help. And Jeje means big sister, right? Jeje really needs your help because I cannot break through the logistics problem that we're facing. And they're all men, right? And then they're like delivering without shirts and swear words, and stuff like that. So I told him, I actually reached out. And the thing that has helped us along is that, number one, we love each other as family and siblings, but we respect each other as individuals. That means in the company, he doesn't see, okay, there's this big sister, so I have to listen to her, and neither do I see him as a little brother and then you have to listen to me. So we're both equals. We both come in with different strengths, different weaknesses. So we see ourselves as business partners, number one. And secondly is what I have appreciated, and I realized this, especially in the last 12 months, is that sometimes as family, it's very difficult to talk about very unpleasant things. How do you face bankruptcy, for example? If the ship sinks, who's going to take the brunt of it? But because we have such an open communication, there's nothing that we don't talk about. We basically trash out everything already. I also gave him the room to grow because he joined the business a little bit later than I did. And I did tell him, I said, boy, you have to take the time to learn the business, and to rough it out and to prove to other people that you're not just the son of the boss. And my brother was the kind that will go shirtless to unstuff the container, perspiring with the guys until his underwear was wet, and all these are true stories. And I think he has won the team over, just like how I won the company team over, that we're not just here sitting on an ivory tower, pressing the buttons and telling you that, oh, technology is the best way to go or sell this thing. It's not like that. So we walk the talk, we lift the bricks, and we built the house together. So I think my brother, he is maybe one of my best friends in life, but I see him as a business partner. So he is someone that we will go to, we will banter ideas with, we will challenge each other out. And the amazing thing is that two of us are very different. But yet, because we have common values and philosophy, we got that going. So that's the family part where we have to trash out. How do you deal with family relations, number one? And the other thing that I did, which he also agrees from day one, is that I will have 60% of the shares and he will have 40%. So when things go bad and someone has to make a decision, because there's only two of us. If it's three, then maybe it's a bit easier to vote or whatever. But it's only two of us. So he agrees. Although we are equals, but I said when shareholding comes, that's 60-40. And it's only because I joined the business a couple of years earlier than him, right? Then about, I think 10 years ago, we've kind of realized that we need to start building the corporate management. And a lot of families are not able to let go of control because they always feel that they know best. If you own the business, it doesn't mean that you know best. You're not the best salesperson, you're not the best customer service, you're not the best logistics guys, right? So it's very important to start bringing in, I wouldn't say professionals. What we love to do is to groom people from ground up. That means they've been through maybe from a driver, picker, warehouse guy, and then we actually groomed. We've been grooming our team. So from an employer standpoint, when I do interviews, one question that I ask them is, I said, what's your life dream? Right? I realized people cannot answer that question. So I said, even when you're 65, for example, how do you see yourself? You can be sipping coconut under a coconut tree. That's a dream. But nowadays, people are so encapsulated in their daily lives, right? In the grinds. They don't have a vision of what they're dreaming of. So that's the first question that I ask. What's your dream? And how can the company help you or edge you towards that dream? And then the second thing that I told all my employees, and I've been very open about it, you interview anybody, they would know. I said, it is my responsibility as your employer to not only take you closer to that dream, but to know that if it doesn't matter, you work for me 3 months, 3 years, 30 years, I need to make you a better person in your personal life, in your career, in your professional life as well. If you leave me after 3 years and you get a much better paying job, a much better role, for example, it means that I've done my job because I have propelled you to the next phase of your life. But if you're just here to waste your time with me, then it's no point. So this has been the philosophy that I've told my interns who joined me at 17, all the way to my 60-something, if they come for interview. I said, how can I value add to your life? It's not what you can give to me. And so you have to appreciate that people have made that choice. So how can I then reciprocate with gratitude? So when I was grooming the management team, we also know that, because I saw from my dad and my uncles, because they didn't have enough management people, they were often like, if the boss goes, then the business goes down with them. But in order to have sustainable corporate, a good business, right? For the long term, you really need to start developing that middle layer and to give people the opportunity to fail 50% of the time. and also to realize that it will be different people. So you'll be one of the first few people to hear this, but the next phase of our development, what I'm going to do if I have to start afresh the entire business, is to have what we call a collective leadership, where the employees, very much startup world, the employees will have shareholding, maybe 5%, 5%, 5%, and then the board will be made up of employees that deserves this. And all of us have equal voting on how the directions on the setup of the company should be. And I feel collective leadership is what will make the company blossom in the years moving forward. That's how the next phase of growth in 2023, I likely will rebuild the corporate team in terms of, it's not a pyramid anymore, but it's a flat, very flat hierarchy.
Yeah, give them a sense of belongingness and carry them along is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Very interesting. Nicole, looks like you were very intentional about this philosophy and this whole approach towards hiring and so on and so forth, right? So, who were your role models? Did you have any mentors in this journey? How did you think through this very intentional philosophy or approach towards building your organization?
I've learned a lot from my dad and I've looked up to him, but I wouldn't say that it's a direct kind of a mentorship. I have to mention about my maternal grandma. From a very young age, she gave me this golden line, which I live by till today. And it is more of a blessing to be able to give than it is to take. So you are not at the losing end if you give more. Honestly, even my husband doesn't understand this, right? Like, how can you give more? But from young, my grandma taught me that because she knew that her granddaughter was more of a giver than a taker. So in a sense, she was just trying to tell me that I have something special inside about me. And it's not as many people in the population that has this mentality that it's okay to give and give and give and give, right? Because you will be rewarded in different ways. And when the timing is right, it may not be an immediate reward. So my grandma, she's the eldest of 3 sisters, right? I mean, the parents already passed on. At 8 years old, she was working to put food on the table at 8 years old, like carrying bricks and all that kind of thing. No education. She has helped to look after her sisters. From my grandma, from her own personal journey as a woman, how after she married my grandpa, she was working the laundromat. So her own story inspires me. I said if Popo could have made a life, what she's done, very simple life, but I'm sure being an educated younger woman, I can also make an impact to the world. She used to be sending food stuff back to China, during the 80s when it wasn't open yet. And then the other person, which was an invisible inspiration to myself, I really salute my mom. Because my mom is a very modern woman, right? She's got purple hair, she's got funky nails, like orange nails, and the most fashionable grandma on the planet Earth, not a single wrinkle, at 65. And the thing I ask myself, can I live a life like my mom where I don't have a career, I don't have my own personality, I don't have anything to accredit myself outside of the home? So I really champion all homemakers as well, because you have to find your sense of identity as a person. And it's not like a career where, how much dollars I make, what's the KPI, right? I salute my mom because I think, and it's no credit to myself. I'm not saying that I'm a good child, but she has brought 2 excellent children up in her own ability. And then secondly, she supported my father through the most difficult times, even up till when he was fighting cancer, and then before he passed on in 2016. And so how does she find her own self? So it's like, now on reflection, her largest report card would be in her children, right? The other thing which maybe I can mention is that I think in 2018, I joined YPO, Young Presidents Organization. I'm like the smallest fish in the biggest ocean with the largest fish, right? What I like about this organization is firstly, there's no solicitation. Secondly, is peer leadership and peer learning. So we're all huddled together because we're on this personal journey of bettering ourselves as CEOs, right? And the third thing is that you find security in sharing certain things because we're trained, in forum and things like that, where It's okay to talk about anything under the sun, but we respect each other and nothing leaves the room. So I also started to see all my peers within the YPO chapter as mentors, because you learn from different areas, right? I think interestingly, when you talk about mentors, I see my children as my mentors. And a lot of times, you feel that it has to be an older person or whatever. But I think nowadays, I see a lot of mentors in the younger ones. Yesterday, my 3-year-old took out the yoga mat and she said, in school, oh, mommy, I teach you how to om. So she started doing the close her eyes and cross her leg. And my boy, who's turning 7 years old this year, said, yeah, I learned mindfulness in school as well, and so mommy, when you get very tired or angry, you take 5 minutes.
Wow.
And to zen out for the world, everything quietens down, you'll be in a much better place. I mean, a 3 and a 7-year-old, I mean, what do they know about life, right? I mean, what's there to be frustrated about, right? It's like, but they have a lot to teach, right?
Let's shift gears a little bit, right? So you earlier said that my husband also doesn't understand what I'm trying to say, right? I also read that it's a beautiful partnership of almost
26 years.
So you said that, sustaining a relationship with someone as different as Eddie has been challenging. So in what way are you both different? And yet, what is the secret behind this beautiful partnership?
Yeah, so we met at our first part-time job, waitressing, earning $4 an hour in 1997. So the first difference is that I come from a very comfortable and loving family environment. My husband does not. They stay in a one-room flat. My father-in-law, he was a doorman at the Shangri-La for most of his life. So very simple family. And I think from a fundamental standpoint, they were a little bit more abusive, the way they brought them up, but my mom never laid a finger on me. And I attended good schools, obviously. But because of the financial situation for Eddie's side, he was never given the opportunity to blossom like I did. The second thing is that I'm a true blue Singaporean Chinese to the Chinese, right? Like Teochew and Cantonese blended. My husband's dad is Arab Malay. My mother-in-law is Chinese Indian. So he's Muslim. So even from a religious standpoint, already very different. I'm Buddhist by birth. That was the other obstacle. The third thing, which we're very open with, is that I'm a degree holder. He's not. So to the outside world, it would seem like it's not a comparable pairing. But the most important difference is that from a personality standpoint, I'm very patient. I'm very mild-tempered. He's the one that has constant outbursts. When he argues, it needs to be loud. You need to throw stuff. And when we first started dating, he couldn't understand. He said, "Honey, why your tone is so flat?" And I said, "But why you need to be so upset about something really small, right? It's not the end of the world." So that was something that he could never figure out, could never understand. And then I always take a more long-term approach to things, and he's slightly more short view. And then the other philosophy that, because he was still exploring himself, and up till the time he joined Singapore Airlines, he's a cabin crew there for 26 years as well, he's never left Singapore. He didn't have a passport. So that really shows the difference in the background. I traveled, I started this interview today telling you I flew to Hong Kong on first class at 1.5 years old. So when he got his passport, fully excited. So you know what I did? I've been very open and candid about it. I said, let's keep this relationship as distant as it can be. I mean, we can keep in touch, we get to know each other, but we don't have to go into so serious that, we talk about relationship, marriage, and blah, 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 because there's so many obstacles that we had to overcome. So I told him, I said, go fly, travel the world, meet as many girls as you want and as you need to, because you need to explore what's out there. And if after 10 years, we are still meant to be together for whatever reasons, then we can decide that, okay, we're getting serious now in our late 20s, and we're not seriously dating anybody else, then we can decide that we'll be together. So I think that sense of maturity that I had at 19, till now my husband thanks me for that, because he said he had the ability in his 20s to go completely crazy, to let that exploration completely out. And then now in his 40s, he's like, I don't want to fly. I just want to be home and I just want to chill, because he's lived there, done that, met as many people, explored the world as he could, right? So as we entered into marriage, in discussing, I had to bring him home, right? Bring him to meet my grandma that loves me to bits, right? I had to say, how do I overcome the language barrier? How do I overcome that? For my parents, it was very daunting. The daughter has to now marry into a different religion. So, but my husband made it easy for me as well. Like, he was just explaining to me that, Islam is not as terrifying as it is. It's a very simple religion, like any other religions. It's just being good to others, believing that there's just one God. So I think as partners in life, we sometimes have to explain situations to each other in the most simplistic of fashion. And it's like stripping things down, because human beings can overcomplicate things, right? Because life is very simple. But there's one thing that I salute him for till today, after 26 years. He is the only person that is my solid cheerleader. He feels that Nichol can do no wrong. So even if I bang a cat over, there must be a reason why I bang the cat. He truly believes that I am going to be the world leader at some point. And he's been the one that's gently pushing me forward, challenging me, like maybe you should take a political role globally, something like that. He has been my single spiritual cheerleader since the time that we met.
So, how did you gravitate towards him? In a way, on a scale of 1 to 10, if I may say so, he was at a lower scale and you were at a much higher scale.
In my earlier years, especially because of my eating disorder and my sense of self-worth, I felt that nobody would even want to like Nichol, because she was fat, she was ugly, she was all the insecurities. Although on the surface, I looked like I was super funky, fashionable, and confident in my own way. But inside, I felt that nobody would like me, right? So I guess I took him in because I felt, now I got someone that likes me, right? The relationship started on that point. We both had our own insecurities. And maybe the nurturing part of me felt like, okay, this guy is a diamond in the rough. There's something that I can do to rub him and polish the coal off this diamond, right? So can I give him an opportunity to grow and to scale? And if I can elevate him to be in a better place after a couple of years together, then it's not that I'm helping him, but I just felt that he missed out on that. There wasn't this person that believed in him, right? And so I took on that role. It's not a sense of pity, but it's just that I think I can value add to his life. So that was the mentality I entered into this relationship. It's not that I particularly liked him, although he was handsome like Aaron Kwok. It's not that I was particularly attracted to him as well. But I think through the years, we became a couple. And we were not a Lego that fitted together, but we worked so hard at it that now the two bricks are fitting. Sometimes we don't even have to really say it out, but we know what each other is thinking. I may not agree with what he's thinking, but we will accept it. And I think it's truly because I am someone who's always looked like I'm very strong. I don't really have many people that I can go to as a support, because they just feel that Nichol is going to save the world. I'm the one with the red cape, right? So, but he has been very steadfast at the corner, just quietly supporting me. And I think just through that alone, I gravitated towards that. With my husband, I can talk about anything under the sun.
It's almost like you were everyone's caregiver and here came your caregiver, That's a beautiful story. Nichol, I've heard so many times you've spoken about eating disorder. Talk to me more about it. How did you discover it and how did you then deal with it?
Yeah. So eating disorders are actually very prevalent globally. It's just that people don't really talk about it. So when I was 5 years old, like I shared just now about the ballet teacher. So from young, the relatives would compare that, how come you're so big and he's so small, or things like that. And there's comparison with the grades, how my cousins are doing. So from a very early onset, I felt that I needed a sense of control on something. I can't control my grades. I can't control whatever. So I say, hey, maybe I can control my weight. And maybe the slimmer I am, people will like me more. But I think eating disorder, actually a sense of addiction. It's just that we are using food as a coping mechanism. So for me, because I'm such a perfectionist in a lot of ways, I needed to cope with something And the only way that I was coping with, it started early on, was about eating disorders, right? Like the food part of things. So at 11, I went to the dietitian center because I was like BMI heavier than other girls, right? And it was a double-edged sword because the dietitian at 11 years old taught me everything that an 11-year-old should not do. For example, no carbohydrates, no high sugar fruits. You need to starve yourself, water diet. And after 2 weeks, I didn't lose a single pound, right? And then as I went in through my secondary years, my tertiary years as well, I became addicted to slimming pills. I could take 20 a day. I was vomiting. I was on laxatives. And I can honestly tell you, because I started my eating disorder journey way too young, because I was like 9, 10 years old, all the way till now, it doesn't leave me. Even throughout my pregnancy, which I think a lot of women don't talk about, especially if you're an eating disorder survivor, so to say, pregnancy to me was very challenging because every single 2 weeks, 1 month, you have to weigh in, right? I fear standing on the weighing machine because my sense of well-being or my sense of worth is how low the weight is. But I mean, when you're pregnant, you have to keep putting on weight because the baby is growing. So it's very daunting. But the amazing thing was that when I was 21, I woke up one day and I went to the toilet and I was pooing out blood in the toilet bowl. So that was a wake-up call for me. I said, what is my biggest dream in life? I wanted to be a mother. That was my dream since I was 14. I want to have 6 children. If I continue on this disordered eating path, I will be further and further away from being a mom. So that day when I woke up, my colleague, which I'm very open with, she said, I think you need to seek help, or you need to go and see a doctor about it. But in Asia, early 2000s, right, nobody really knows about this eating disorder. There's not much help that's being given. So I managed to meet my doctor, the Institute of Mental Health, because eating disorder is a mental disorder. And I finally got a diagnosis that I suffer from bulimia nervosa with signs of anorexia. And, although I tried to recover myself from the eating disorder, right, like, excessive exercising and things like that, I couldn't do it without professional help. So I sought help at 21, went to see psychologists, and doctors and things like that. But the important thing was the champion in me said, hey, there's no support group. So I started the eating disorder support group in Singapore, trying to give help to caregivers, moms, dads, families, best friends, speaking to other peers that are also facing eating disorders, right? And then I started seeing a plateau of people. So in my search for helping myself, I decided to help others as well. So even till today, I champion and I advocate about voicing out with eating disorders because the earlier you nip the problem in the bud, the faster you get out of it and you can actually recover 100%. So for me, it's too bad that I was in it for too long of a time. It's going to be quite difficult for me. I might have to live with that. Every morning I get up and the voice will say that your thighs are too big or like you're not good enough. So continuously, but I feel that I am who I am today, in part due to the eating disorder as well. I could drive myself like 5 days no food. Eating once a day is like, it's nothing. I'm not saying I'm not championing it, but that resilience of how I've created that lifestyle for myself, right? And how hard I drive myself, in part, it had eating disorder to do with it. But I just know that now the wake-up call for me 20 years on is different. My children sees how mommy is leading her life, and it's not a healthy role model. And my second daughter is slightly on the bigger side. So she has been asking me, Mommy, how do I go on diet? And that's when I realized that my children sees that reflection in me. When I talk about it is a couple of years ago, I did a video on being pregnant and have an eating disorder, right? So my children saw me filming that. Very touchingly, that time my children were like 6 and 8, right, the older ones. And she said, Mommy, you know what's your problem? You really don't love yourself enough. 6 and 8, they spotted that in me. I had tears rolling down my cheeks because I said, how can such a young girl knows that I don't love myself enough? So if I could make a change to my own life for the next 45 years of my life, right, is how do I appreciate Nichol in every shape and form that I am, the way that I am today, without changing anything about myself, and love myself a bit more.
So, how did you change yourself then, Nichol, now?
I think I'm still struggling with that. I think that's the biggest challenge. The biggest setback that I have for myself is in my whole checklist in life, Nichol is always last on the checklist. And the checklist continues to be bigger and bigger and bigger. Board members here, advisory role here, save the earth here, right? Nichol is always last of the pack. But how do I start escalating myself towards the top of this checklist? And I don't think I'm alone in this. I think when all of us are swamped with the daily lives, right? So now my struggle is that I need to continuously tell myself, what can I do for Nichol today? This moment, right? Before everybody else. It can be having a nice double espresso in the morning because that gets me up and there's no shame. Like, let's do that, right? Or maybe it's taking a vote of vodka if it helps me to sleep at night, right? But what should I do for myself? Because only if I'm stronger can I be stronger for those around me.
Beautiful. So, on a lighter note, Nichol, you said I want to have 6 kids, but I know it's not 6 yet. So, how do you manage the kids and how do you stay sane?
Yeah, so for me, I think it's 24 hours is not enough, but it can be enough if you indulge yourself in every single hour, every single minute. So I drive my children to school, all of them. So what we do is that we blast the music in the car and we sing and dance. Yeah. And so I think it's embracing all these little moments. I like to cook with my children as well. So we teach them all the life skills. I always tell my children to have those difficult conversations and I prepare them for the world that they are entering as well. But we really embrace all the little moments and we make every trip count. So recently in December, I brought my children, just me and the 4 of them, to LA. So we did all the theme park things. And and it's crazy, right? Everybody on the plane was looking at me, this mom with 4 children. But I prepped them and we let our hair down, right? And I say, make a mess, and I think don't be too hard up. That things are not going to be perfect. It's a little bit of spills here and there. And I think it's very important also is for me and my husband, we indulge in the drives, in the 30 minutes that we have for that coffee waiting for the children. Embrace life as it comes, the good and the bad.
I read somewhere that you had the good fortune of meeting the Dalai Lama.
You know what? I'm going again in April. I'm organizing a second trip for my peers. So I think to me, it wasn't, to be very candid, it's not completely life-changing, right? It's not like you meet Mother Teresa or it doesn't impact you in that way because I'm not a Tibetan Buddhist, right? For his followers and believers, it probably will be life-changing completely. But for me, it was so subtle way that he always expresses himself and the little nuggets of things in reflecting his life. And it's not religious at all. But for example, right, one thing that he said to me, which is very interesting or to the audience that day was that the children will change the world. So how will you change the world for the children? Because we don't have the power to change the kids, but we have the power to change the world that we live in. I mean, it's a very simple 10-word statement, right, that he made. But that has led me to an awakening that maybe my next career is not in business, but maybe it's in the business of education. And because I love children and I really like, educating and sharing and things like that, maybe the next phase of my life is advocacy and education. And nothing gets him angry. He's always this. And the other thing, Enma, which not many people realize is that really he's a refugee. If you think of it, he is a refugee, right? He escaped his own country to be in a place and someone took him in. But he's a refugee. But he's a refugee that tried to make the best of what he could in his circumstance and make a change to the world. And the other thing, which is more important now than ever before with all the geopolitics and everything else, that we are 7 billion strong. We're all humankind. 7 billion of us, we live on this earth, right? We're not black, white, orange, whatever, nothing. We're just 7 billion human beings living on this earth. So we're actually one race, one religion. We're just one humankind, right? So he said that at the beginning of the audience, and that stuck with me, honestly, forever. I think the other thing that whether I believe in it or not, but nothing is permanent. pain is not permanent. Everything is transient. So if you see every challenge in your life as a building block for the next thing, that will set you up for the next obstacle that you're going to fight. So, but these were some of the things, and I felt that it was important for me to share this with my peers. So, which is why I want to pay it forward, right? So I organized a trip. There will be 100 of us going to Dharamshala. And it's happening in 4 weeks, and juggling 100 CEOs, honestly, is not easy. But yeah, I'm making it happen again.
That is amazing. So you're going to India for that means.
Yes, I'll be in Delhi and then we'll fly to Dharamshala.
That's been great, Nichol. Before we end the conversation, like I told you, I set up Atlanta Diaries as a place where aspiring women leaders learn and unlearn their definitions of success. So what are your parting thoughts for these leaders as they transition into larger roles or as they find their own greatness?
It's very important. Every time you listen to a speaker, you see someone on stage, you hear someone on a podcast, you probably think that that person has made it in life or is like already very successful. But behind it all, you have to remember that maybe that person today, she's crying behind the scenes, but she's got to fake it until she makes it, right? And so I think for all of us thriving leaders or wanting to turn a corner, it is very important never to give up, not to give up the money or give up the business or give up your career, but never to give up on yourself. Because you are the only permanence in your own life. So you need to always reaffirm yourself that you have a reason for existing in this lifetime, and then seek for your own purpose. And purposes can evolve and change with time. So for everybody who's listening in, bring that little sunshine to yourself today, regardless whether it's flooding or raining or snowing or whatever it is. But it is very important to find that sunshine in yourself because no one will bring that sunshine to you.
Thank you very much, Nichol. Thank you for this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening. All my guests have brought their most vulnerable selves on Atlanta Diaries. And even if a small segment of these conversations can help champion the journey of one person, it's going to be really worth it. I do have a request for you. Please share this podcast on your social media and with your family and friends. Our society is constantly evolving and Atlanta Diaries must too. I really appreciate if you can leave your feedback in the form of a review or a rating. These are impactful and rousing stories that need to be shared far and wide. See you next time for another one on Atlanta Diaries.